Well, thank you so much, Ryan, for being with me today on the WaveCapital's guest speaker series on relationship building in a team environment. You're my 32nd guest. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Fun to be here with you, Garrett.
Great to be with you as well. Ryan, when you think of relationship building in a team environment, what does relationship building mean to you?
You have to deliver value first, and you have to give people time. I mean, some people will not trust you and like you until they believe and respect in your abilities and production. So, I think the biggest thing that people can notice comes from, hey, what transaction can I get? Hey, Garrett, great to meet you. What can you do for me? And then I can maybe do something for you. It has to be different. It has to be, hey, Garrett, great to meet you. How can I be on your team? How can I support you? And oh, by the way, I'm willing to keep showing up like this without any benefit to myself. That's how you build trust. That's how you build relationships. And encouraging one another is a big part of that as well.
Absolutely. And you were part of Notre Dame Fighting Irish as a college player for a very prestigious university, went on to play in the NFL. You had 10 surgeries in a 10-year NFL career. Tell me about the relationship building you did at Notre Dame. Tell me about the relationship building you did in the NFL. And what was it like to get through those 9 surgeries?
Well, it's important to begin with not everybody's worth a relationship, right? I had teammates that didn't care about winning, that wanted different things out of the NFL than a championship, and they and I were not going to be friends. Doesn't mean we still can't be teammates. Doesn't mean we still can't respect one another, but you have to be honest too that not everybody deserves your time. And so when whether it was at Houston or Kansas City or back in Denver when I came back and we won the Super Bowl, you got to take people outside of work. I always took the guy I was playing next to dinner outside of the facility before we started the season. That way we could really get to know each other, break bread. And there's actually science behind when you eat together, your brain builds pathways similar to family. So it's important with those who you want to have a relationship with, who your production depends on. Go outside of the workplace and don't just go to a happy hour. Take them to breakfast, go to get a coffee, do a yoga class or something, or meet them on their terms. And in that way, I was able to build incredibly powerful relationships that I still have today. Relationships that I would never imagine would be as fruitful as they have been in my personal and professional life. And so that's a big piece of how I was able to build that in the NFL. As far as the injuries go, I'm big on mindset. I wrote my book on it, Garrett. You know that. But I use the words "I am," "I can," "I will" to get through every surgery. I mean, one of the toughest ones. I mean, four on my back, one total toe, and five to save my leg below my knee. But the
Mhm.
toughest one was my toe injury, and I had to work each week to bend my toe one more degree for about 6 months. So I just kept saying, I am going to attack this rehab. I can do the best I can. I can add nutrition to it to help my healing, and I will play again. So I used I am, I can, I will in each one of my injuries and each one of the failures that I had throughout my 10-year NFL career and even on the field before games. I am distracted. I can breathe. I can run the play that's going to be called, and I will be a champion. So between delivering value and bringing people outside of the workplace who are worth your time, that builds the relationships, and then choosing your mindset will help you outside of any success or failure.
Definitely. And your Super Bowl 50 team, the Denver Broncos, that won the Super Bowl, won the championship. What was so special about that team, compared to other teams that you played for?
We had an incredible willingness. I mean, even the wildest cats were showing up at 7 a.m. to get ready for the day. I mean, we understood and were willing to sacrifice time with our families, time that we may have wanted to do recreational activities to be the best and to work on improving. And even in success, we found ways to get better. But one quick example, Demarcus Ware, one of my favorite teammates ever, defensive end, Hall of Famer, soon to be Hall of Famer. One day we were playing the Patriots that week, and about Wednesday in practice, he came up to me and said, "You're going against James Harrison, right?" And James Harrison's this big, huge defensive end who had what they called the rip move, where he wanted to throw his arm under your armpit, get your edge, and hit the quarterback. So I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "He's going to put in that rip, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "When he does that, pinch your elbow." And so we're in the first third down of the game in our first game against the Steelers. And sure enough, James Harrison put in that rip move, and I pinched it, and he goes, "Oh no!" Right in the play. So that's an example of DeMarcus Ware, future Hall of Famer, phenomenal defensive player, taking a minute on a Wednesday to come talk to me on the offensive side and give me some help against somebody he knows that I'm going to be facing. That's the kind of willingness we had. And that was coaches and players. Coaches were willing to take criticism back, and players were as well. And the biggest thing is none of us took things personally the year we won Super Bowl 50. We understood that if a coach was coaching us or a player was asking more of us, our teammate was asking more of us, that they believed in us versus they didn't want us around. And that's a very, very amazing thing to be a part of. And unfortunately, one of the few times I was a part of a team like that in my 10 years in the NFL.
Well, let's go back a ways, and that was great. A great narrative about with Demarcus Ware and helping you go up against a guy like James Harrison, and it's anecdotes like that that really make a great episode. The one I'm interviewing you today because you are a first class elite athlete who played 10 years despite all those injuries. You were able to make it on a Super Bowl team roster and win the Super Bowl, and it's just a testament to how the mental fortitude you had to power through all that pain and to use every bit of strength that you had mentally, physically, even spiritually to get you through a team environment where building relationships matter so much, and it takes the cohesiveness of a unit to win the Super Bowl. So I really appreciate you providing me that example. Going back to when you played at Notre Dame, I mean, you were being looked at by other colleges and universities. What made you choose Notre Dame? What was so special about the university? And talk to me about your time there.
Well, I love the University of Notre Dame. It's one of the greatest decisions I ever made in my life, outside of asking my now wife for her phone number at the time. It was amazing to first visit Notre Dame. First went unofficially, and the planes are going overhead, and I look to my left, my dad's got tears coming down his eyes in Notre Dame Stadium. One of the most beautiful sights he'd ever seen, and then they beat Michigan. And I was on the field, 17-year-old kid. And to this day, I don't know who this guy is, but he tapped me on the shoulder. He said, "Hey, Ryan, I know who you are. I know why you're here. When you come to Notre Dame, you'll be a part of the family. You'll be more than just a number." And he walked away. And it just confirmed everything that was to come. On my official visit, Notre Dame was the only school to bring me to a mosque versus any of the other ones. And that spoke a lot to me. That was incredibly powerful. I mean, how capable are we that Notre Dame can bring a young Muslim recruit to campus and take him to a mosque before even taking him to campus? And Notre Dame has one of the longest standing Muslim student associations. So it began there. And then I met the rest of the people that make Notre Dame what it is, and people that I could see use their faith every day in their life and still work to be a fantastic professional at their skill set. So Notre Dame gave me an incredible family, and a family that I love and enjoy today, especially when I do the radio broadcasts. And it made me a better Muslim because I was on a campus where there are 530 masses per week on campus at Notre Dame. So all of a sudden, praying 5 times a day seems like you're getting a little bit of a break. But incredible spirituality, in addition to acceptance and respect. And that's something that I've brought with me everywhere I've gone since my time at Notre Dame.
Well, I'm so glad that you had such a profound effect on Notre Dame, and Notre Dame had such a profound effect on you. It was a mutual respect, and also the inclusiveness. There was no exclusivity. There was an inclusiveness of all faiths and all purposes for people to go and to pray, to learn, to grow as a human being. You played college football there, and it's a great sport on to the NFL, but being a college football player, you're part of the Notre Dame brand and you represented it well, and you had great and fond memories at your time at Notre Dame. When you got to the NFL, you had 10 surgeries, and we talked about how you had to overcome those, and you were able to valiantly, have a successful 10-year career being a Super Bowl champion. You also become a motivational speaker. You talk about your broadcasting with Westwood One. It's great that you have diversified your portfolio of professional attributes, if you will. Talk to me about your time outside the end.
Well, I knew that I wanted to make an impact with people, because when you win the Super Bowl, everything you believe about yourself comes true for other people. And I want people to have that moment in their life. I was told I was too tall, too short. One coach told me I had soft bones, which is not a medical term, right? So I had so many people who told me I would not be able to achieve what I was able to do. And here's the thing: when you choose your mindset, people will be wrong about you all the time, and it's not your job to listen to the naysayers. So I really want to be able to make an impact through speaking, and I've had tremendous fun and impact. Speaking to companies like Google, Lululemon, Hermes, Beata, many others, the NFL, and whether it's mindset, leadership, or teamwork. I've had bad coaches, I've had great coaches, and one of the things too, the worst kept secret in the NFL, mental performance is a huge, huge piece of your eventual success. What's relevant and what's irrelevant to your success. So, learning those things and being able to share that with people, not only a mindset, but you don't have to listen to people that really don't matter to your success if you're driven and you want to be able to achieve. Garrett, I'm sure somebody told you that this podcast was a bad idea. How wrong were they? So, you don't have to keep receipts and you don't have to listen to them as well. And that's what I love about speaking, encouraging people to find the success, whether it's communication, action, or learning a new skill. And I take the lessons that I learned from my 10-year NFL career that was full of ups and downs, to prove how choosing your mindset and really figuring out what's best for you and having a process for your success and failure will ultimately make you the most successful person you can be.
And you eloquently state what it means to be successful, what it takes to be successful, and you're exactly right, Ryan. I mean, you think about your life, and you're going to have the naysayers, the people who doubt you, the people who might look down on you, or not think much of you, and then you have others who are mentors who believe in you, believe in your self worth. Maybe even recognize your self worth before you recognize your own self worth, and that you're able to get to a maturation point where you become like a complete person from the standpoint of like being able to operate physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually in unison in one, and you're complete and you're ready for that turning point in your career where you can take all of those elements and really find purpose in life and find your passions. And I definitely credit my mentors and people who believed in me. And I've always loved media, and I majored in journalism at UNC Chapel Hill. And I remember being a student at Carolina and playing Notre Dame. As a fan watching Carolina football, playing Notre Dame football, many times. So I always love those matchups. But with respect to the podcast, yeah, I mean it's great. You're my 32nd guest, and it's wonderful because the 31 professionals before you have their own narratives. They have their own experiences of what makes relationship building important to them and what it makes it so much important for everybody in a team environment. So I love the conversation we're having because you're on point about, even with respect to this podcast, so many people might have an idea to do it. They haven't put it into action. And it just came to me one day. I was talking to my press agent last year, and it's been an enduring process of almost 14 months, and plan on finishing out the podcast, getting it on Apple Podcasts and other platforms, and then being able to write a book on relationship building and team environment. So I love that you have written a book. That's definitely inspiring because I love people who produce all of their knowledge into a book so they can share with others. What did it take to write the book? What were the motivating factors?
Well, I always thought I always thought I'd love to be a writer, and to write a book for me, it was if I can't meet somebody or if they can't hear one of our conversations in a speech that I do, I want to be able to reach them, and I want to be able for them to have something tangible that they can turn to in good times and bad. And so for me, I just wanted to put that down on paper, and I am a voracious reader, and like the Book of Five Rings was a huge book for me that really helped me in my life. The Alchemist. So I just wanted to continue both my love of books and my respect for books by bringing an opportunity to people who I may or may not see and meet, and encourage them to build their process for success, and to give them some relief, some acknowledgement. Look, Garrett, you and I mean, anybody who's tried to achieve something, you're going to make people uncomfortable around you because other people have chosen not to go for an achievement. They've chosen not to do the little things. And that can weigh you down. That could be a loved one, that could be a family member, that could be a great friend. And you also don't have to listen to them, and you can set some boundaries. An example, my 6 year in the NFL, I started telling people you can show up on Saturdays at 2. Well, that was because I left for the hotel at 3. It's not my job to take you out at night on Friday night. I don't come to your work and ask you to take me out on a Wednesday night in the middle of your week, right? So You have to be able to build these structures and boundaries around yourself, and not around yourself, but towards your goal. And that's something that I really want to encourage people to do, and part of the reason why I wrote my book.
Definitely. And you speak with a lot of words of wisdom. And I can tell that you are the type who have a lot of thought provoking ideas and with response, and you're able to like draw upon experiences and thoughts, your time as a football player in the NFL. When you speak at these corporate events and you're talking to a lot of different professionals who may have not been previous, professional or collegiate athlete, what are those conversations like? What do you glean from them? What comes to mind? How have you been able to contribute to those conversations where they take a lot of great advice from you?
Well, I promise you, if you know nothing about football, you'll still have fun in my speeches, and I make a point of that, to make sure. But and the thing too, performance is something that transcends sports, jobs, careers, sectors. We all understand what it means to be performed. Those of us who are parents understand what it means to perform every day, right? So performance is really universal, and that's what I'm talking about, right? How do you declutter your mind? How do you if you have somebody you're going to encounter that you don't like, what can you do? So one of my big things is, what can you do? Can you be so strong that you're actually resilient, right? Which is greater, strength or resilience? And I would say resilience, because you're going to reach strength, you're going to reach excellence, and you're going to have a point where your good's not good enough. Well, instead of worrying about what happened or worrying about perception, what can you do? And the other thing I talk about is having fun. And one of my favorite letters that I've gotten back after my speeches was from a father. He said, "Ryan, I really took home your point about having fun. And my wife and I had a struggle. We have struggled the last 2 years with our son. And after talking to you, I went home and I told my wife, and we said, well, let's just have fun with our son." He said, "We have had more joy in the last 2 weeks than the previous 2 years, simply by asking our son, 'What do you want to do for fun this weekend?'" So I'm able to encourage people in their personal and professional life to create most of these opportunities that are all around us every day. And whether that's celebrating a win, smiling at someone, getting a mantra for yourself, I mean, these are all things you can do in your personal and professional life to make sure that you're continuing to go towards your goals, and you're really creating success in your community beyond just yourself.
And you talk about having fun and you talk about strength versus resilience and how much resilience matters even more than strength. And I mean, to definitely being on the offensive line, you got to be resilient. You got to protect your quarterback, especially all the way to the Super Bowl. And you won Super Bowl 50. What was it like protecting Peyton Manning? Talk about your relationship with him.
Well, I love Peyton Manning. Will always love him. A phenomenal leader, an incredible character, that made everybody better. And some examples of how hard he worked. He would practice fumbled snaps in between bench press reps. He would take extra time in practice that most teams just let players stand around, and he'd make sure we did a blitz situation, right, or we're picking things up. So I learned so much from Peyton Manning, and I'm grateful for him. And I'll tell you though, Garrett, it was funny because protecting Peyton Manning, it sounds great on paper, and it's great now, right? When I wear my ring and talk about protecting his blind side in the Super Bowl. And that entire season, if I had given up a sack that had ended his career, I don't know if I'd have been able to get a dinner reservation in Denver. So now I can get any dinner reservation I want, and that was in jeopardy for each of those 19 games. But something that I can laugh about now, and no matter what, just grateful for that experience to work with one of the greatest football players in the history of the NFL. And whether it was him or some of the other greats that I played with, I can tell you there's no surprise when it comes to their success because of how hard they work. And it's really something when you're year 8, year 9 in the NFL, and you get around a veteran who's been there 12, 13, 14 years, who's working harder than everybody else. So hard work pays off. The greats understand that, and they work on things that people wouldn't even imagine are a part of success, and that's why they are so successful.
And he's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. And I'm so glad that you had such a wonderful relationship with him. And you're exactly right. I mean, a lot of extra pressure protecting him, especially during one of the most pivotal moments of your career and his career, winning a Super Bowl. Congrats again on winning like the NFL's, if not one of the sport's most highest achievements, which is winning a Super Bowl. Talk about your family, what your family means to you, and how special they are to you.
My favorite job is being a dad. I'm a husband to one, a father to three, and it's something that brings me challenge and joy every day. And I cannot say enough about my wife. She's the superhero in our family, and not just in the way that we've built our family, but in the way that she had supported me throughout my career. Just this, I lucked out, Garrett. I mean, I think when we meet people and think about relationships, rarely do we think, well, how will this person be as a mother or father? Or how will we make money decisions in the future going together? And for me, I've had my best teammate in my entire career has been my wife. And I'm just fortunate every day to spend time with her. And I had a great professor, Professor Leahy at Notre Dame, who said, wake up every morning. He said, find somebody who every morning you wake up, you fall in love with them again. And I was able to find that, and so my family is my greatest source of joy, pride, fun, and challenge every day. And I'm very, very, very lucky man.
Well, I'm very happy to hear that. And my first guest on my podcast was Hall of Famer, Presidential Medal of Freedom winner Lou Holtz. And he won a national championship for your alma mater back in 1988 for the Fighting Irish. And he said the best business decision that a person can make is who they marry. That's the best business decision a person can make for himself or herself. And I'm sure you believe that.
Absolutely. That's one way to put it. Absolutely, and I think it's important too. My wife and I, we won't go to anybody's wedding if they haven't done premarital counseling. You have to learn how to communicate to each other. You have to learn the origins of how you learned to fight. We all learn to fight differently in terms of discussions and arguments. It's important to get on the same page and understand that you love each other, and you want to be with somebody who's willing to work with you, grow with you, and support you. And it's amazing to me how many times I had teammates or friends whose relationships were always a give and take, right? What am I getting in return? Well, if you get to do this, then what do I get to do? And that to me is just not a way to live life. You need somebody who's on your team, who understands that you are both two and one together, and that you need your own individual time, and you can be challenged. And you want somebody who challenges you, who does things for you without asking in the best possible way, who supports you. And it's your job to be clear and communicate that as well. I mean, I've had teammates, Garrett, who they said, well, my wife doesn't get this or my girlfriend doesn't get that. And I said, well, did you tell them that this was an expectation? Did you use your words? And well, no, but they should understand. So I think, all of us, it's good for all of us to remember we can communicate more. As an offensive lineman, we communicate all the time because we have five of us and we all have to be on the same page. And when it comes to relationships, make sure you communicate and make sure you choose somebody who brings you joy in your life and who doesn't detract from it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, my wife and I, we got married during the pandemic and we had to separate out our wedding ceremony and our wedding reception. Our wedding reception had to be in 2021. Our actual ceremony was 2020. But, just going through the pandemic together just strengthened us as a couple. And we just welcomed the birth of our first child, Peter, back on November 4th. My wife, Angela, and I are just so blessed and thankful.
Congrats. You sleeping yet?
It's been a struggle, but we're getting through it. Every 3 hours with the bottle feedings, and then our child's having to sleep 3 hours at a time. Well, you hope, ideally, anyways. Some days are better than others, but no, he's been a joy, and my wife and I, and we have our family with great support and love and kindness, and it's been wonderful. It hasn't really fully sunk in yet that I'm a father, so I'm part of the club, and
Yeah.
words of advice from a relationship building standpoint as a father.
Continue to date your wife. That's all I can say. Continue to date your significant other. When kids come, it's easy to put down even who you are, and who you are in a relationship to do what's best for the child. And I'm fortunate we had some great mentors who said, "Remember, you're married first and parents second," and that's been very good for us. So I mean, you're not going to get there yet, Garrett. You're about 6 months out from your first date, maybe, but make sure, even if it's a matinee lunch or going to a dinner and getting back before young Patrick gets to bed. Make sure to continue to date your wife. And also remember, not everybody has the same resources that you and I have had. Not everybody has a supportive family. Not everybody has a supportive partner. So remember to enjoy those little things and work in our individual communities to make sure that those without those critical support structures are able to find success.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And yeah, I love my son Peter, and he's the best. I want to make sure that in these unprecedented times that we live in 2022, that he's going to grow up in a better, safer, a more healthier world. I mean, when you think about just the world in general and things that you've seen over the years, and obviously you live in Denver, and you're a big part of the community. What are the conversations you have? What are type of the mentoring that you do? You see the world around you, and you see that there are a lot of positives, but there are also unfortunately a lot of negatives. How do you help people, mentor people to look at the bigger picture, look on the brighter side of things, and maybe put things into perspective that they hear or see in the world?
Well, I try and do as much as I can to support community organizations here in Denver. I'm on the board of I'm on a few boards here in Denver. Economic Literacy Colorado is really big to me. I mean, after losing my first $1 million, it was something where I had to learn quickly, and since then I've learned how powerful it is to teach youth and others in our communities about the abilities they have and capabilities they have when it comes to owning their money. I'm also on a board for a school and a hospital, so it's important to understand what your city needs and do what you're and do it and do what you can for your city. And even the holiday season's coming up, and a lot of us will be at very nice events, and it's important in those conversations to remind everyone that not everyone has the same resources, not everybody has the same experience. And I think that's the biggest thing that gets us in trouble as a society is we all believe that every single person has individual experiences like ours, and that's just not true. I mean, I had to tell my children that, not everybody lives in a house, and that's okay, but that you can't just expect that this is how everybody lives. So for me and my kids, the biggest thing is I want to make sure they're capable. Failure is going to come. There's not a life without failure worth living. And so for me, I want them to be capable, and I want them to know how many choices they have and how much they can do. And in that way, whether it's my children or our communities, we can all do more.
Definitely. And I'm so glad that you're so vocal about things like these where you can teach your kids and you can give them those experiences, through your lens, and offer to them like what your experiences are and what they could potentially expect coming from their brings as they get older and they start moving about in the world and seeing how the way things are. You can't teach your kids everything. You can, be strong mentor to them. You can tell them the difference between right and wrong, and teach them about morals and ethics and strong values. And you hope that your kids, as they learn, by examples and through things that they see, that they have the mental fortitude and that they are able to know the difference between, right and wrong. And I'm sure you and your wife are great parents, and with all the love that you have for your children, that you're very happy that you've been raising such a extraordinary family.
Well, I learned the blueprint from my parents. I'm extremely privileged. I had two parents that loved each other, that loved me and my two siblings, and were not chemically dependent. So, I came from a very, very strong starting in life, and was able to continue to build that and build that now with my partner for our next generation.
Definitely. What other goals, dreams, aspirations you might have? I mean, you're relatively young. I mean, I know I'm a little bit younger than you, but you're relatively young. I mean, some people they play in the NFL, or they play a sport, and then once they retire, sometimes they run out of goals, they run out of things that they like to do, and retirement is hard for them. But you've built a second career, if you will, as I said, with broadcasting and being a motivational speaker, being a book author. But are there other goals and dreams that you have that you would definitely want to implement for yourself?
Absolutely. I'm in the process of working with on one right now. Can't really talk about it. And the biggest thing for me, I mean, you mentioned it in retirement, in any change, you must focus on the transition and move. When you run back and forth in the NFL, the guys who are fast are the ones who start the turn before they hit the line. And right. So you have to do that in life. And in that way, I've been able to turn and move. And now I move forward with no expectations. There are things I want to do, and if they don't work out, great, because I've learned now through time that oftentimes it leads you to another direction where maybe even greater success than you ever imagined. So I absolutely continue to have goals and dreams. I'm learning how to speak Mandarin right now through a little Audible, and so I'm doing little things for me day in and day out, and also continuing with my goals and building on that process to continue success. So because my children don't care, right? Peter's not going to care, Garrett, about what your podcast does, right? He's still going to be hungry. He still wants you to play with him. So for me, I want to make sure my children understand that you have to work hard in life to get what you want and to have those goals. So I have them, and I'll be getting to them soon.
Definitely. I appreciate the time that we're having, and I really enjoy when I speak with fellow professionals who really understand that there's more to just their profession, or there's more to how they live, or what type of lifestyle they want, because it's bigger than yourself. When you're married, or when you have a partner, or when you have children, and or the team that you play for, the organization you work for, it's always bigger than yourself. Yes, you have to represent a brand, or you have to, conduct yourself in a way that you're supposed to conduct yourself, because you care about your character, you care about the way, the public perceives you. But at the end of the day, it's always bigger than yourself, and you should always, keep that in mind, and respect that, and be humble about it. Having a great sense of humility. What are any final thoughts that you might have that we haven't touched upon about relationship building? Floor is yours.
Every single person you meet is your teammate, whether that's a fellow citizen or whether that's somebody at your job. And I say teammate, not family member, because with a teammate you can have expectations. With a teammate, you can confront conflict, and you become stronger when you confront it together and move forward. And know that everyone's your teammate. And I think that's something that we all would do better to remember. That doesn't matter whether somebody cuts you off in traffic, right? You want to get home safely, and a lot of things are about other people, not you. So find out who you want to be as a teammate, find out how you want to show up, and remember that everybody you encounter is your teammate one way or another.
Thank you so much, Ryan. I really appreciate your time. I learned so much, and I hope that my audience, and I'm sure my audience, will take away a lot of great advice from you, and looking up to you as a professional athlete, but also as a business professional, a broadcaster, a book author, but most importantly, a man of faith, a man who loves his family, cares about his community, wants to impart so much of his knowledge and his time and his wisdom to make the world a better place. And I love your website, how it's about being extraordinary. And anybody who has a dream, anybody who wants to do good in this world and to make an impact on this world, he or she has the ability to be extraordinary. And I think that you did a phenomenal job in this episode of explaining that.
Many thanks, my friend, and congrats on young Peter. Take care of the mother, and make sure in about 5.5 months you get yourself a date with her. You okay? Let's go, Garrett.
All right. Sounds good, Ryan. Thank you so much. You take care, and I look forward to having many more conversations with you, and featuring you in my book about relationship building in a team environment.
Many thanks. Have a great one. Peace.
Thank you too. Take care. Bye-bye.